Hello, comic book and collectibles investors. Thank you for joining me for another video today. Switching gears a little bit, I've done a lot of videos on sports cards, but as a kind of a well-rounded collectibles investing channel, I want to make sure that I'm covering comic books and coins and some of these other collectible investments that people are focused on. And so today I'm going to be talking about a specific comic book from 1975. It's one of my favorites. It was a little bit before my time. I was born in 81, but this is Giant Size X-Men #1. I would consider this an iconic book, although it is not one of the early 60s, early to mid 60s Marvel or DC books. The first appearances of a lot of these folks. There are some key first appearances in this book, and I'm just going to kind of go through some of the the factors on why I think that this is an investable book, as part of your collection, as part of your portfolio. And so what I'm going to do with this video is I'm going to dig into some of the numbers as far as recent sales go, what to expect as far as pricing on certain grades, and then I'm also going to go through population reports, a census from CGC. And for those that don't know, that it might be new to this, CGC is Certified Guarantee Company, is basically the standard for grading in the comic book trade, in the comic book investment community. So I'm going to go ahead and dig right into it. And so this is a book that came out in 1975, and it essentially was a bridge between X-Men number 66 and X-Men number 94. So, and part of the importance of this book is this one came out after a 5-year hiatus of no new X-Men stories. So no new X-Men comics. It is the first appearance of the new X-Men. It's the first time Wolverine is pictured with the X-Men. It's the first appearance of Colossus, Nightcrawler, Storm. And it was a huge 68-page book, and for comic books back then, or even today, 68 pages is a long book, and so there's definitely some, it's a unique style of book. It's got an iconic cover. It's one of those covers that you see it and you know it, and I think that just over time, I feel like it's a good book to have if you're looking at comic book investments. In a lower grade, they're fairly common, but if you start getting into some of the higher grades, there certainly is scarcity. And so I'll go ahead and dig into some of the price points. So if you're looking for this one in a pristine 9.8 grade, so this is a CGC 9.8. And this is really kind of I believe this is the highest level this book has ever been graded. And for those, again, that are new to comic book investing, it's a little bit different than sports cards. I know a lot of my audiences are sports card investors, and PSA might be graded at 9. There's grades BGS 9.5 and 10. It's extremely rare that you will find a comic book, not a vintage comic book. Even modern comic books, it's tough to get 10s. A 9.8 is kind of considered that standard. And so this book in 9.8, the population count through CGC is 181 out in the wild currently. Now there might be some that are in grading still there, and then of course there could be some 9.8 raw copies that have not been graded yet at that 9.8 level. So that's somewhat of a moving target, just like it is in other collectibles investments. Price point, this one goes typically over the last 90 days, and I'm looking at the data that I'm gathering this from is gocollect.com. I'll put a link below to this site. It's a very good site. They'll give you more advanced sales analytics type data. I believe it's $9 a month. I'm not a subscriber to it, but just registering for free, you get a lot of really good information. And so essentially what they'll do is they'll give an average of 25 sales if applicable, for each grade, and then it gives you the census numbers. I know there's other tools as well, other sites you can use for this info, but Go Collect is a good one for me. It's a clean, it's a clean look. It's got 100 hot comics, and it's got a bunch of kind of cool little resources there on that site, and they've got a good newsletter as well. with some articles that are written, that are very good. I like it. So it's just a good overall site. So anyway, pop report on that 9.8 is at 181. They're selling for about $14,000 to $15,000. Now, I think kind of the tricky part with comic book investing right now, and I'm currently looking for values, but I mean, if we're really thinking about comics in general, a lot of the uptick in demand for these books has been the success of the Marvel franchise and the movies over the last 10, 12 years. Ever since Iron Man came out with Robert Downey Jr., it's really kind of spearheaded, kind of galvanized, comic book investing. And so it's not to say that everyone that goes and watches the movies collects comic books or invests in comic books. That's far, far from the truth. It's probably a very small percentage. But just the fact that these characters are getting so much airtime, these movies are making billions of dollars. I don't think that there's a movie franchise that's made more than Marvel has in the last 10 years. I mean, if you add up all of the box office sales for all the Marvel movies over the last 10, 12 years, it's pretty staggering. I mean, I know Star Wars has made a lot of money, but I don't think that it touches Marvel and just in sheer accumulation of box office receipts. So anyway, that has spearheaded new interest. It's got these characters right in the front and center. So I guess that question then is, are these prices on the higher end? Historically, they are on the higher end. The big question is can they continue to go up? How do you see these looking 10, 20, 30 years down the road? And again, I should say too, for comic book investing for me, I'm mainly looking at Silver Age books. So these are older books that are from the 60s, 70s, mid 70s, probably is where it cuts off. Some Bronze Age books. There are certainly some Bronze Age books that go up even through the early 90s. Very, very few though that I would buy for the long term. And again, I guess that's my main point too, is if you are looking for quick flips, comic book investing might not be for you, just because I haven't seen, there are instances, I can't say there's not, especially in the modern comic book trade where there's some good flip opportunities. But I just don't have, I don't have enough research under my belt to be able to, to say that I've had success with modern books. I've done a few deals based on movies coming out and things, but I have not, got that down yet. Something I'm still learning. But anyway, so for this book, I'm going to go back. Sorry, I got off on a tangent there a little bit. But so this book and kind of that perfect grade at 9.8, $14,000, $15,000. Now, if you drop this down in CGC 9.6, so the grading is different. It's for comics, it's 9.0, 9.2, 9.4, 9.6, 9.8. If you drop down to a 9.6, those are right around $5,000. So you can tell there's certainly a premium for that 9.8 grade. But if you drop down to a 9.6, you're more in that $4,000 or $5,000 range. And then at a 5.0, if you're looking at just kind of that middle ground, that mid grade, they sell anywhere right now for about $1,000 to $1,200. So depending on budget, you can be all over the place. It's interesting though, even if you're looking at one that's graded at 1.0, you're still paying $400 or $500, $300, $400. So it's not like if you find one that's a 1.0, it'll be $50. That's not how it works with these. So very interesting book. And then and let me give you the CGC numbers for 9.6. There's 358 in the population and in the census for CGC 9.6. And then if you go for a 5.0, there's 392 in the 5.0. And then total graded of this book, period, 9,308. So, I mean, especially if we're comparing this to sports cards and some other things, there's not a lot of population of the book graded. Now, raw copies, that's a whole different story. But, there's only been 9,300 and change copies of this book ever graded. And granted, there'll probably be more, but it's still a fairly low number in my mind. And then it's a low number too when you're talking about those higher grades when making comparisons to other collectibles like sports cards. So it's definitely an interesting buy. What do you guys think? I had one of these books in a 3.5. I bought and sold it in the last 18 months. I guess you could consider it a flip, but it wasn't much of a flip. I believe I had bought it for $250 to $300 maybe 2 years ago, and then I ended up selling it for $450, $500. So I did flip it, and made a little bit of profit there. But it's one where I certainly am looking hard at this one for a long-term investment type book. I just think it has legs. I think that in 50 years, the X-Men is still going to be, it might not be as popular as it is today, but when people are looking at pop culture from the olden days, 2020 will be the olden days, and especially 1970, I think there will, again, this stuff is cyclical, so I think there will be a resurgence of nostalgia from, for these types of characters. I think that they are just iconic long-term characters. X-Men, Spider-Man, Superman, Batman. I think they all fall into Avengers. They fall into that bucket of characters that I see having longevity for investment purposes. And this is an established market in comic books as far as comic book investing goes. So let me know what you guys think below. I'm going to do some of these where I'm looking at different books. If you have suggestions, Amazing Fantasy number 15, Detective Comics number 27, these are books that I want to also review. Just because, and so the Amazing Fantasy 15 is first appearance of Spider-Man. Detective Comics number 27 is first appearance of Batman. And there's others as well. And so, I want to look at, at these. Let me know some of these books that you want to see reviews on, and we will go from there. But hey, thanks guys for tuning in. If you haven't already, subscribe. We're going to have new videos coming out every day. Talk to you later. Thanks.